Hello everybody, you are listening to Feed Your Mind. Today we will discuss the height of the dome firmament explained in detail. And so our research begins with the Van Allen radiation belt. The Van Allen radiation belt is said to be a band of deadly radioactivity from the sun that surrounds the Earth. And it's the main reason why the moon landings never happened, because there's no way that astronauts were able to make it through these Van Allen radiation belts without getting cooked, like a microwave. And so this Van Allen radiation belt is said to begin at 620 miles up and extends all the way to 3,700 miles up. And so 620 miles is also the highest point of the ionosphere. Check out my White Alice video if you want more details about the ionosphere. We're also going to discuss it more in this video as well, because it all seems to be connected to the height of the dome firmament. And it is described as a shell of electrons and electrically charged atoms and molecules that surround the Earth. Now, according to my research, I highly suspect that this line between the maximum height of the ionosphere and where this Van Allen radiation belt begins would possibly be the maximum height of the dome firmament. Because an interesting thing about this ionosphere description is it says a shell of electrons. A shell to me sounds like a firm and solid object, because the thing is, the scientists are literally saying that they're bouncing signals off of the sky. Now, their excuse is saying it's a shell of electrically charged particles, but this seems to be their excuse and their only way to describe what they are witnessing, because if you think about it with common sense, the air is supposed to be thinner the farther you go up. And so how are they possibly bouncing signals off of the sky? I suppose you're going to say that there's some type of magical magnetic field that happens to be protecting the Earth. This magnetic force field is said to have formed by some Big Bang accident. Or we can go with there's a solid dome firmament above us. In my dome firmament playlist, we also discuss satellites, because satellites are definitely not what you were told either. You see, satellites do not exist. They're just bouncing signals off this reflective dome firmament. The reflective properties of the dome firmament is part of the reason why you see rainbows, sundogs, and more. Because according to my research, the dome is most likely some form of reflective material. There's descriptions that say it's as a molten glass. Molten sounds kind of metallic, and it could be a reflective metallic type glass. It sounds like it's probably see-through as well. And so this material doesn't seem like it's known to mankind. But there's also another striking coincidence of this ionosphere, because they say it begins 31 miles up. And so 31 miles up is actually the same height of the highest balloon that has ever been launched. You see, balloons will always pop around 30 miles up or lower. And this is allegedly due to the low air pressure that forces the balloon to expand until it bursts. And so scientists have been creating these balloons to be more flexible so they don't burst. What is causing these balloons to pop at 32 miles up? And what's with the coincidence with 32 miles being the lowest part of the ionosphere? And so, like I said, the ionosphere ranges from 31 miles up to 620 miles up. So if it begins at 31 miles up, this suggests a possible gradual firmament. Maybe the lower point of the firmament begins with some resistance at around the 30-mile height, and then gradually becomes more and more dense to the point where it's a solid dome firmament at around the maximum height, which is around 620 miles up. There's also another factor to consider when analyzing the height of the dome firmament, and that's the possible curved nature of the firmament. You see, if the dome is an arch-like shape, there would be various points of height on the dome, 31 miles up. It seems to be the average point where balloons pop no matter where you are. Most balloons usually only range from 11 to 23 miles up, so this 32 miles up was an exception, and this happened around 2002. And so polar orbiting satellites are said to be as low as 444 miles up. The ISS is said to be about 220 miles up. Low Earth orbit is said to begin around 100 miles up and is said to range to about 1,200 miles up. Outer space is said to actually begin at 50 miles up. Firmament activity appears to begin around 30 miles to 100 miles up. And maybe 100 to 600 miles up could be the second heaven area, possibly, because maybe that's the area where the stars and the planets, which are actually stars as well, hang out. In my last video, I discussed how planets are actually stars. So make sure to check that video out if you get a chance. And so the second heaven area seems to be around the range where scientists are saying the orbit begins, with the ISS being 220 miles up. So I'll also be covering the ISS in a later video as well. And so in this video, we see how if the firmament is indeed a dome shape, that means that there would be various heights of the dome, literally to the point where the sky would meet the land. somewhere in the Antarctic area. We also discussed the possible gradual resistance that the firmament might apply. There's some type of activity starting around 30 miles, but the activity could extend into a denser and denser resistance until it actually becomes a hard barrier at a possible maximum height around 620 miles. We also discussed how there could be possible layers of the dome where there could be an area where some would consider a second heaven or where the possible planets and stars exist. And so to summarize everything up, I'm kind of leaning towards the gradual resistance hypothesis of the dome. And I'm also kind of looking at this whole second heaven, where I'm going to do a whole video on that area of the topic. So click your notification bell and maybe we'll discuss that second heaven hypothesis in greater detail. But I really want to know what you all think about everything we discussed in this video. Let me know in the comment section, how high do you think the dome is? Or what hypothesis that we discussed in this video do you like the most? It could even be some type of combination of everything we discussed in this video. And so either way, this kind of puts into perspective the height of the dome firmament as far as I can investigate at the moment. With the research that is available and putting two and two together, there seems to be pretty much a range from as low as around 30 miles up to as high as 620 miles up. Check out my Proof of the Dome Firmament playlist for much more information. I'll leave the link in the comment section and the description box. Simply enter your email address at feedyourmind1.com. That way I can send you some cool news briefs throughout the week. It's completely free. If you support this channel, chip in $1 to $5 and you can join my VIP room for early releases, free gifts, and much more. Links in the comment section and the description box. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and click your notification bell. Include the title of your favorite video and you're automatically entered into a chance to win a free gift from my Feed Your Mind pop-up shop. This has been another episode of Feed Your Mind. Thank you for tuning in, signing off.